Dear friends, dear colleagues, I'm Anna Popova, the head of the DLP in the info security in a softline company. And today I would like to discuss this very interesting topic about DLP systems. What is going on with DLP systems? At what stage of development there are today? What were the prerequisites? And what is the reality in this year, as we are facing a very challenging year? And what is going on with the DLP systems? This would be the quite analytical report that I would like to deliver. I know it's a controversial topic, like it always happening with the DLP systems and with any information security systems, but I would like to share my opinion and possibly you will agree with me. I will begin with a way of introduction. I'm introducing the info security company. We've been for over 10 years on the infosec market, and we, in essence, are involved in the information security services. We are providing the full-scale integrated solutions on information security, including support, including the full-scale support of the information security systems, including the DLP I'm going to talk about today. This would be a quite important aspect because I am representing a non-classic integrator, and we're not a vendor, we're not any system producer, and we're not an integrator who may be working in the way they work by implementing some systems and helping to set up these systems, and then possibly doing the same for another customer. We provide support, we provide outsourcing. We do not hide this word, we are not afraid of that. We've been doing this for over 10 years. It is important to understand because this would be the main central point and focus of my presentation. And my opinion will be based on these prerequisites because for over 8 years, I have been involved in our company doing exactly just that. Now, I was always amazed, and I am still amazed with this situation when we got so-called a fashion or a trend for security operations centers. We got this abbreviation SOC. We begin to discuss that. It has become a very buzzword, and the Central Bank of Russia also sort of like involved us into this conversation about the SOCs. But like we say, sometimes something went wrong, and actually the security operations centers, the incident response centers or monitoring centers. So this is basically a response center. And even based on the title, you can come to a conclusion that we understand it to be some kind of integrated approach or a certain set of processes, certain set of mechanisms or functions or algorithms possibly, but not any out-of-the-box solution. But unfortunately, this is what's going on, and I can tell you from my experience of the last 3 years since our company have joined the Softline group of companies. Softline has a lot of clients and customers, and I can talk with many of them. And still, everybody wants to see the SOC as an out-of-the-box, like you set it up on the table, you push some magic button, and things are working in mysterious ways. It's very difficult to change this pattern of thinking. Maybe some vendors or manufacturers are attempting to educate the market. But still, many consider that this could be some kind of out-of-the-box solution and turnkey security operations center. This is the new fad on the market, as it seems to be. I've been working for many years supporting our clients, and it not like rubs me the wrong way, but it puts a smile on my face. Okay, you want a turnkey solution, but okay, what will you be doing with this turnkey solution? And let's talk about that a little bit more, because from my point of view, it's a big process. It's about a center, and a center is about some kind of core operations. But around this core, something else should be happening. Like we can see on this picture on my slide, this is human. So far, we cannot be replaced by machines, fortunately. And still, we need humans. We need some people. We need some human resources for that, who is going to manage all of that. And still, for some reason, people who are involved in information security, they forget about that component, that this kind of imaginary box that has been installed, it will be supported. It has to be supported by someone. And I believe that this would be one of the key moments which are important to understand where I'm coming from. And this, again, would be the certain set of the software and hardware and some people who'll be working with all of that. And they'll be using their own methodology. They can build some processes. Otherwise, in our centers, we would not have such notions as red team. This would be very strange. What kind of box solution we can talk about? It's about the process. It's a process, and it's a continuous process. It's a regular process. And I believe that you understand what I mean by that. What do we expect from the modern InfoSec systems? What do people expect from the information security systems? Even those CMs which have been in the market for quite a long time, maybe beginning with the antivirus, like the most classical type of the information security. Nobody cares about those CMs which would give you some hundreds and millions of checks or alerts, like a certain mass of events. Nobody cares about that anymore. Nobody wants to dig into that and trying to find some rational component in that, trying to figure out what would be the false positive and not false positive, and what kind of user all of this about. Because we know that the system can initiate alerts totally in unidentifiable way. We have to understand what kind of user, from what server, from what workstation has been doing what. Maybe nothing has happened. Now everybody wants to see some kind of a general picture in the layer of a user, like who is going to be responsible, who has done what. Again, it's not a robot. Somebody has done something. Somebody has made a mistake. Somebody has allowed some malfunction, which has happened on some kind of machine or a server for which a certain system administrator is responsible. And from all the InfoSec systems, as highlighted by many professionals and even manufacturers, everybody wants to see some kind of CM system. It has become some kind of trend lately. And these kind of things are developing well, and people want all other information security system to be like a CM. And CM, like a magic baton, like a magic pill, which deals with all the problems because it is in some kind of very intellectual and friendly form, is being depicted or showing like what has happened, what kind of event or an incident, where it came from, in what channel, at what point of time. And maybe there are some other important aspects to this incident. So all of this is being shown by the CM system. So we expect the same from all other systems, and of course from the DLP systems, which will be the topic of my presentation. What has been happening with the DLP systems in the last 10 years? I will say right away, we have to understand that we are living in Russia, and now more than ever, we realize that everybody is isolated from each other. We're on the lockdown, and for many years, we have had a certain trend towards the import substitution on the information security and on the market of DLP market. This import substitution has taken place a long time ago because the Russian-made systems, the Russian manufactured systems, some while ago, let's say for 10 years ago, maybe, they have replaced the classic DLP systems. I'm speaking about specifically about DLP systems, such as McAfee, FirstPoint, and Symantec, which will be the classic, like a big three of DLPs. Speaking about the Russian realities and Russian business environment, and probably from the Russian governmental agencies, those three were not really fitting because the system would be limited, and of course, it is exactly DLP. We can react based on the content or by the source in some kind of event and block it. Speaking about the Russian reality, they've always wanted something more. They wanted to look, they wanted to peer, they wanted to see. Well, this is the aspect of the information security in our country. And we've been speaking about that for quite a while, especially as applied to DLP. And again, these Russian-made DLPs have pushed away or replaced other DLPs. And these kind of Russian giants have first, like InfoWatch and Search Inform companies, they have emerged for like a decade on the market, at least a decade. And their history traces back to more than 10 years ago. Now, what was going on with these brands? In the beginning of this path, we had all been fighting for building the channels of capture information because first we got messengers, corporate messengers, some kind of channel messengers. It was an era of their proliferation. We all remember that. And they began to be used on the corporate workstations and in those companies where it would be allowed to use as kind of messengers. It had become another channel of information, another channel of possible information leaks and some communications which could be potentially interesting in terms of informational security. So for many years, everybody was attempting to build these channels, and I guess that this trend has been over very recently in 2019 when everyone kind of sort of reached the same level, and we got some level of stability in this whole situation. Then, having built a lot of channels, the systems began to morph into kind of very thick and very heavy, clumsy systems, if I can use this word, because they've been using a lot of consoles. If you're working with the DLP systems, you know exactly what I mean. Sometimes more consoles, these user consoles, sometimes less, and also administrator consoles. And it has become very difficult. Then we begin to say, why is this happening? Why do we have so many of them? I want everything to be in the web version. I want everything to be like in one window, you push the button, and it all makes sense, and information should be already pre-analyzed. Now we're moving to the second stage, and this would be information analysis. And of course, DLP system, like no other system, probably such a system which is purely analytical. It is not a system which would be working out of the box, like I said before. And we are dealing here with an ongoing flow of information which goes through that DLP system. You have to analyze it. Then otherwise, what is the point? Why do you capture this information? Why do you build so many interception channels? Of course, to analyze, like, do we need this information, or were we looking for something else, or being able to find something very fast? Actually, quite a big element of any DLP system would be the simplicity and the convenience of looking for information, because like we have 500 users, we even in a month will get a certain bulk of information. You want to look something up of what has happened like a month ago, and you may end up in a situation when it will be very difficult to do. So again, some intellectual kind of interfaces and some capabilities of more detailed work with information, and using the regular structures and linguistic analysis, the prints analysis, digital prints analysis. All of this begin to be applied in these systems, and all of our DLP systems, the Russian-made systems, began to use just that. Okay, let's say we got some information. Let's say we analyze this information, and then we say why he or she is doing that, and maybe we're looking after this guy. And as a matter of fact, no, this perpetrator could come from a totally different division, from a totally different section, not the one we're tracing. Now everybody wants forecasting. It's okay. It's a next stage, the forecasting and moving towards certain prevention, which in the first place was the reason to build the very first DLP systems, I mean prevention. But prevention in terms of a user's perspective or user's behavior. We begin to forecast behavior. We wanted the DLP systems to forecast this behavior. And we know that we got some additional modules or additional separate products with the DLP producers, which are called profiling, behavioral analysis modules. I'm not talking about specific vendors. You know exactly what I mean by now. Yes, it's a great thing, but But in foreign solutions, in international DLP, this will be in a separate component, if not a separate system. Like they're not mixing DLP and this kind of a behavioral analysis system. But we're developing differently. We wanted this system to be working together, to be integrated, and even using our terminology, taking the profile of any users and get some information and to dive into any incident or any event related to this persona, to this user, which has been stored in our database. And we came to this element. I think it was a trend of the last 2 years when user behavior analysis and the UBA technologies have built some kind of headache for the Russian DLP manufacturers, because now the clients want to have this UBA component. And like I highlighted, it's for good reason. Now, what are the market expectations of the DLP systems? It is not just words and why. What you're seeing on the slide, it's these are the requirements based on my experience of communicating with many clients. Like if the company installs this DLP system for the first time, like what are the corporate expectations? First of all, of course, to identify risks, and not the risks of information leak. Not only the identification of what could be a suspicion activity or some leaks. They want to see internal risks. They want to see some risks related to people, to their personnel. And this would be one separate focus area. And now DLP systems are also working on that lately. Next, they want to see market pricing. The year 2020 is very inconvenient in terms of financial crisis here, on top of other things. And this is why, speaking about some capital investments, some big investments in buying a DLP system or any other system for that matter, nobody wants to do that. So let's be frank with one another. And people do not want to spend a lot of human resources or hardware resources. This is another concern. Because like again, in 2020, buying hardware, it's difficult to get, difficult to buy. Now everybody's hunting the same servers, which are stuck somewhere in the region of China, like it was our case back in the spring. It's a problem. It's a problem now to buy this hardware, to buy like a hardware for a particular system. This is, first of all, would be expensive, and secondly, would be very, very complicated in terms of building all this like logistical process. People want tangible results, and they always ask us, like, what kind of user cases? Can you tell us, like, what can we get out of this DLP system? Should we install it? Give me specifics, like what can I get out of it? How much money can I preserve and save? And of course, people want, even on the stage of the system implementations, they want to evaluate what will be my savings out of the system. Makes sense? It makes sense, especially because we are responsible for this. And doing investigations, doing DLP incidents, disclosure, leak of information, and each of the risk events which we identify thanks to the system requires some investigation for each event. Basically, for each event which is not false positive after the primary processing, we have to do some investigation, and the system has to be structured like we were saying below. It's a lack of some kind of big number of consoles and being able to go end to end between the consoles. When you move from one diagram, from one event or report, you can fall into some specific event, and out of this specific event to click on the user and to see their profile and to get some statistics, behavioral statistics about this user, and develop their incidents and so forth, and even to get some significant information about this user. Learnability, or like machine learning. And now everybody wants their DLP systems as the system which is processing lots of information. People want to get some scalability and a certain archiving capabilities and algorithms, which would enable this system to work much more efficient and work faster and to work more operationally, sort of like react and look for some significant events in the system. So they want DLP to match their business goals and their business requirements. It's a challenge, It's a challenge to marriage or streamline information security and the business goals. But business have to understand the value. The business have to be interested in preserving, safeguarding their information. They have to be interested that in a situation where there'll be no perpetrators in their company, no intruders, no felons, no inefficient or unloyal employees in the company. I'm just listing you the different types of risks. And when it comes to the profit margin of the business, they do not care about that. Nobody wants to sustain additional expenses, especially during the Corona crisis. Nobody wants to to have some employees who will be working remotely and probably just milling around their house instead of working. And this year we can feel all these trends. Now, what does it take for DLP to work properly? Well, it's a very controversial topic, and we have a lot of questions, and we have had a lot of discussions between us and our clients, always. Because again, going back to our topic, what can we do to make sure that the system, this out-of-the-box system, would start working at all? Of course, you need to do the right implementation. What do we mean, the right DLP implementations? We know that it will be working with our information. We will include all of our data channels, communication channels into this system. And what will happen with this DLP, like in a day? Probably it will be very challenging for DLP to work functionally. So first you have to set it up. How? You need to set it up on what you would like to identify, what would be our goals, and what kind of information we want to protect. Like, what are we protecting? What are we defending? Speaking about the classical situations like information security, confidential data, safeguarding. What kind and type of data in our company will be the limited access data? And do we have like special documentations, and do we have a commercial secrets regime in our company? All of these are questions that company need to find answers to, and this could be the starting point. Next would be consulting and the technical implementation processes. Of course, they should go in parallel with one another, and by the time you deploy the DLP in field, all this consulting should be over. I mean, we have to understand what are we safeguarding, defending, what should be the initial policies and settings. And these are not the policies which are part of the DLP system, which we put by default. But we have to customize those settings for our company and for our business goals and policies. We have to set up some filters for our own needs, to make sure that the system is clean, to make sure that the system would not stall, and we wouldn't solve many other headaches and problems. Well, next would be the support function. I will say again that judging from my experience and my extensive experience of working with these systems, supporting is like everything, because I know some cases when you can do a very cool implementations. You can issue a full package of documents and normative acts in a company, which will be regulating DLP system. But what is happening next? The system oftentimes simply just shuts down, basically. And we've seen that, and we are seeing that again whenever we work with our future customers and clients. Like they say, what kind of system it is? Well, it's off, it's just shut off. Like, what's the point to even talk about that? And we now next have the audit of the system. We turn it on. We see what is going in this system, how bad things are, and we begin from scratch, from zero. What else? On a global scale, this kind of support has two types. It's a technical support or analytical support, because the tech support in any system, it's an integral part of maintaining the system operation and the system administration, so to speak, like the different hardware administration, to make sure that we have a continuity of all the processes. And the second type of support would be analytical support. Percentage-wise, this would be the overwhelming part of supporting DLP systems. I can say, just trust my word, trust me. As an example, I am showing how our company is working. Like I said before, our company has been on the market for over 10 years since the year it was founded. It has been working with the analytical support of the DLP systems. This would be the first option of cooperation when we support this system, which people have. The system is within the perimeter of the customer. Let's say it was switched off, like I said right now. We turned it on, we made an audit, and then we began to outsource it. We begin to provide support. And it pretty much makes sense. The customer, they have their DLP system, they have some events, and they have some identifiable risks, which I've identified with like 3 guys on the left top corner. They're bad guys, which are doing something at their workstations, and they're generating some very bad content, which eventually may result in some malfunctions and even some crimes, cyber crimes. Well, all of this is being fed into the DLP system, as we can see, according to the specialized channel, and our employees, in this case, analysts, connected to this system, and they are working with this system as if the customer would be working with the system. Basically, every day they're looking at events, they're looking at information, they're filtering this information. They retune, reset up the system. It's also an ongoing system because it cannot be set up just once and for all. You have to always streamline this process. And then this analyst team identifying certain events, they're building some kind of analytical, some, I would say, specific notes or reports, where they collect all the information about what kind of incidents have taken place or may have taken place. They're preparing these reports about some employees which may have become the reason of these malfunctions, and they also have the reference to kind of normative documentation in the company, and they pass it on back to the customer for a decision making about some kind of maybe internal investigation or certain liability measures to an employee, or some using this data in whatever processes they would like to use it in. And very often they give it to the security department, economic department of this client. I think it makes sense. Next service has been very well established for about 10 years, and it's the same. Basically, it's a DLP as a service. Basically, the system is on our side. We've taken some hardware, we've connected this hardware into the data center, so we've installed a DLP system on this for a specific customer. It's a dedicated DLP system, which is the safeguarded DLP system. And now, in the same analytical mode, we begin to process this information. Now, what is different that in this scenario, we are also responsible for supporting the infrastructure where this DLP system is deployed. And the customer do not even have to think about that. They do not have to think about this hardware maybe malfunctioning, replacing it. They do not have to think of how to maintain it, if it will malfunction, if it will be blocked, or block all the data, like what have to be done with it. Some kind of classical examples of what the tech support usually is doing. So we have such personnel. We have such people in our staff, of course, and they are providing this kind of technical support. Now, what is very important here? It is important in this kind of modus operandi, in this kind of DLP as a service mode, that basically we are providing the hardware to the client because it's physically it sits, or we deploy DLP systems on it for this particular customer, but we are also providing licensing. I mean, the specific DLP system licensing. You don't have to buy it separately. You don't have to buy it, deploy it, and so forth. Like I was saying before. So in terms of CapEx, there'll be zero CapEx on buying licensing, on buying the hardware. But what's the payment? What should be the payment scheme? This would be the monthly payment or quarterly payments as a part of this servicing agreement. This is agreement to provide services to the customer. Customer is paying for that on a regular basis. This is how we work with it, and this is how it could be as an example. Again, you do not need to hire some staff which will be supporting DLP system, because again, it is not the headache of the customer. It's our headache. According to this contract, we have to keep all the staff, engineers and analysts who will be supporting this system throughout the time of this service agreement. And if something happens to them, it's also our problem. It is not a problem of our customer. And this SLA will not be affected in any way. It's a full day, it's a full time, and this system, which is second to second, is generating some events and processing some flows of information. That would be strange to go to it once a month or once a week or whenever you have the need in it. Then there is no point in this rapid response and in reaction. We have to make it like a full workday mode. Like if something happens, like any breakdowns on the line, some electricity is down, or any global catastrophe, we should react. We do not have any holidays. We don't have any days off. According to our contract, we have to provide this instant service, rapid response, and reports about operation without this kind of mementos or very rapid response, and the incident reporting, of course, it should be always online. The system is always updated. We are working with business units, and I want to give you an example of one of our key account. I haven't received an okay from them to show their name, but I can mention them because they've been mentioned in different materials of our company. This would be NVIDIA and Eldorado Group. This would be our key customer at this point, who is using our DLP support services. Why I'm mentioning this particular client? Because to be on the same page with business, this would be exactly the case about this company, because they do everything for the sake of business. Business is not just something secondary in these processes, like when we do the monitoring and incidents response. Business is knowing what is happening at each moment of time, and they are part of assets audit. They're identifying which assets are critical, which are not as critical as time goes on, and so forth. Like I've mentioned, we support the hardware and software. They do not need to look into all the technical details because we do it. I've mentioned about that. And of course, the protection, defense measures, data defense for our customers. Of course, we do that. Like I said before, we have been doing that for over 10 years, and different access on the level of administrator. All these accesses are alienated. The analysts can have the access to data, but the engineers do not have the data or the access to this data. And of course, we are in the fully isolated facility, and the personal credentials, there is no just one single credentials under which you can go to the system. They cannot identify us, like, who are you? They always know who is writing, who is calling. Like they know their analyst, they know their engineer, and we provide the people on duty backups. we double-check people on the polygraph machine. Like, you cannot even get into our company without first doing the polygraph kind of test or several multi-layered checks. And I think the market knows about that, how difficult it is to get into our company, especially if you want to work with these kind of products as classical SOC or DLP. Fines and penalties, absolutely. We sign a contract which is protecting both parties. Why I'm speaking about the both parties and why we have this like a civil agreement, because the labor contract, which may be entered into with a particular professional which you hire so that they would have an access to the DLP information, to sensitive information in the DLP system. This information which is a little bit beyond the scope of their powers. There is a labor contract which is signed with this person, and very often it protects an employee, sometimes to hold them accountable if they would disclose this sensitive data. In Russia, this may be very, very difficult, and I think we have enough judicial cases and courts. In our case, we prepare a contract which would be very beneficial for the customer, and they sign it, and there are all kind of liabilities and all kind of penalties and fees for loss of this data or disclosure of this data. This rights delineation is very, very very, very serious. It's all delineated on the level of OS and BD. And again, we have this, we write out all the clauses about the information security, that this will be a totally isolated segment, and the network access is simply limited as much as it is possible. All the data channels are encrypted, and the system which you have to apply is applied to the full extent. This would be strange otherwise to work or to have a company who is selling the information security services, but at the same time, they do not defend their own information security. I think it would be very, very strange. And I believe that this would be the like, we're paranoid on this topic, I would say, on the topic of self-defense and protection. And we believe that you absolutely, if you take this kind of liability, responsibility, you have to do all of this. Fail-proof, now many people forget, and many companies forget that you need a data backup. It's a must. We have to have a capability to roll back to a certain previous version of our system in case we have some malfunction. Like I've mentioned before, we have to be able to preserve this information. We cannot afford to lose any information. And I believe this should also be true for any company which is providing this or won't provide this type of services to the market. Well, the conclusion, the outcome of my presentation, I did not want to get ahead of myself and to specify like certain conclusions. But I want to say that when we talk about DLP as a service, when we do this outsourcing and provide support, we provide licensing. Well, probably you would think that we bought these licenses from the manufacturer. Of course, we bought these licenses from the manufacturers, but to be able to get the payment by installments from the customer and not to require them to do some front capex by the one big payment, we of course have to approve this with a vendor. And here's the question: probably you have some like deals with some vendors. Of course we did, otherwise we would not be able to make this statement. There are some vendors which prior to 2020 and throughout 2020, in view of all that was happening on the market and all these trends, some vendors came to conclusion that probably this will be the future of DLP systems, and not only DLP systems, but the information security systems as a general. You have to build some kind of service-based model like the SOCs and rapid response centers, but not only related to hacking. Still, we have to have some kind of integrated approach, and each information security system should be deployed according to this principle and probably sold just like that. We are happy that there are some vendors who've supported us. Unfortunately, I cannot disclose their names, but should you be interested, I can provide you on the sidelines of the conference. I can provide you some information. But publicly, unfortunately, I am not authorized to give you the names of these vendors. But it's not a one vendor; it's more than one, and it's great. It's wonderful because it's becoming to be a trend. It's a trend of the year 2020, and hopefully, it will remain as a trend for the next years. And this is how the IS systems and DLP systems in particular will be developing. Thank you for your attention. If you'll have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Once again, thank you and have a good day.